Tommy Jaggi. I have FanSided here with NFL expert Marcus Mosher as we wrap up week 8 around the NFL. We're approaching midseason now, Marcus. We've got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about who is the favorite to win the AFC North. Should we take the Colts seriously? Who's the best 3-win team in the NFL right now, Marcus? And we'll give our close to midseason MVP thoughts. Who's leading that race? We've shared a couple times throughout this podcast over the course of the year so far, who's in pole position right now. But let's start with what are your overall thoughts from this week's games? And we just watched a not so competitive Chiefs versus Falcons game last night. Anything big stand out to you this week, Marcus?
Yeah, there were a lot of blowouts this week, and I think a lot of people are calling week 8 the most boring week in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And I get it. We didn't have a lot of close games, but at the same time, I thought this was a week where you really started to see the contenders separate themselves from the pretenders a little bit. Like, I think a good example is that game you just mentioned, the Chiefs and Commanders, where yes, the Commanders were without Jaden Daniels, but you just saw how overwhelming this Chiefs defense can be, like in the second half of these games. And I even look at a game like Chicago and Baltimore. I don't know if Baltimore's a good team yet, but I know that the Bears, who have a decent record, probably aren't, right? And when we get to talking about the NFC playoff teams, they're not going to be one of the ones I consider. So I thought for the most part, the teams that we thought are really good, like Buffalo, they took care of business in convincing fashion. And that led to some games that, weren't all that exciting.
Yeah, I had Red Zone on during the 1 o'clock slate and just nothing to get real excited about. It's a pretty bad window there overall. I'm sure it'll get better from here. Let's talk about the AFC North, though, because this division is bad. It's a bad division. And I didn't think that I would be saying that. I mean, this division has Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. Of course, Burrow has hardly played with that toe surgery. Might not be ready until late December if the Bengals are even in a position to bring him back this year. Lamar Jackson, though, could be coming back soon. The Pittsburgh Steelers currently lead the division at 4-3. But Marcus, no team of the 4 in the AFC North has a positive point differential on the season right now. It's a bad division overall. So I want to kick it to you first. Who do you think is going to come out on top of this division? Who should be the favorite?
We should mention, you talked about the quarterbacks, right? The Browns, the Bengals, and the Ravens have all had to use multiple quarterbacks. The Ravens are on their third quarterback, Tyler Huntley. The Bengals are on their third quarterback after benching Jake Browning. Flacco was there in Cleveland. Kenny Pickett was there for a while before he got traded. So when you have a lot of quarterback turnover, we can expect a division to be bad. But I think one of the most shocking things is the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Bengals. Bengals not so much, but those 3 teams all have atrocious defenses. And really the only reason why the rankings are better than maybe what they even really are is because they played a couple of the offenses like Cleveland, who is really bad. If I had to pick a team to win the division, I'm still taking Pittsburgh. They've got a 2-win lead in the division. I know their schedule is a little bit harder than Baltimore's coming up, but there's nothing from this Baltimore team that I feel great about right now. I would be shocked if we get more than one team that that gets to the playoffs. And honestly, I'll be shocked if any of these teams get over 9 wins.
Marcus, Mike Tomlin was so disgruntled that the Browns traded Joe Flacco to the Bengals and was comical because 2 weeks later, Flacco beat the Steelers. I know that Steelers are sitting atop the division right now, and a lot of people would still suspect that they're going to come away with this. I think it's going to be the Ravens. I really do. I think it's going to be the Baltimore Ravens. They sit at 2 wins entering week 9. So it's like, why would this team be there? But you're getting Lamar Jackson back. If they're what we know about the Ravens is they can at least have an elite offense when Lamar Jackson is there. Their defense might be bad, but guess what? Pittsburgh's defense is bad. Pittsburgh has a harder schedule the rest of the way. And I think what saved my opinion on this, Marcus, was the fact that Baltimore was able to squeak it out this week. Had that not been the case, I mean, I can't pick them at 1-6, but at 2-5, you're just 2 games back really from Pittsburgh, 2.5 games back from Pittsburgh. I think they can get there. Pittsburgh has a brutal schedule still. They play the 7-1 Colts this week. They play the Chargers after that, the Bills, the Lions, twice against the Ravens. And I think that those 2 games against the Ravens will determine the division.
And it's really a shame that the Bengals dropped this game against the Jets. They had a 14-point
Yeah.
lead late in the game. And just to be clear, I don't think the Bengals are good at all. But if the Bengals would have been 4-4 after the first 8 weeks of the season, and with the win already over Pittsburgh, I mean, you would have felt pretty good after the first month of the season. Like you survived the first half with Joe Burrow going down. If Flacco can just play 500 football the rest of the way, maybe you do get Joe Burrow back in mid to late December, and you do have a chance at hosting a home playoff game. But losing that game was was so bad. Not only just to their playoff chances, but you lose a game to the Jets where they didn't have Garrett Wilson, they didn't have Josh Reynolds, their number 2 receiver, and they still put up 39 points. Like this is a team that needs a lot of soul searching. And Tommy, this whole division is it's mind blowing how much it's regressed in the last couple of years. It was a couple of years ago we had the Bengals, Ravens, and the Steelers all in the playoffs at the same time. It's wild how much worse it's gotten.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL, that's always that running joke, not for long. And that's how it feels in the AFC North right now. I still think Pittsburgh, Baltimore, those are your two teams. The Bengals, though, that defense is atrocious. You could not lose that game against the Jets. And that tells us everything we need to know right there.
Yeah.
That's everything we need to know. All right, Marcus, let's talk about the Colts. I mean, this team is on fire. A point differential of plus 116, the best point differential since the 2017 Buffalo Bills at this stage of the season. I mean, granted, they beat up on a bit of a cupcake schedule so far. The one true like contending opponent they have, they lost that game against the LA Rams. Maybe could have been a different outcome had AD Mitchell not fumbled the ball at the back of the end zone late in the game. Maybe we're looking at an 8-0 team right now. Are they actual Super Bowl contenders, though? Because we go through and we look at the teams that they've beaten so far, the Miami Dolphins, the Denver Broncos, who to their credit have come along recently, the Titans, the Raiders, the Cardinals. They did have a 2-score win against the Chargers, which might be their most convincing on paper. And then another game against the Titans. Like, the schedule's been really easy so far. I think their biggest test is coming up in 3 weeks. They play the Kansas City Chiefs. I think we'll know, is this team have it or don't they? But at this stage, Marcus, what do you think? Are they Super Bowl contenders?
No, but they're a really good team. That's a lot of fun to watch. You mentioned the schedule. Like you probably of their 8 games this year, 5 of them have come against, 4 of the worst teams in the league, including 2 games against the Titans. They barely beat Jacoby Brissett and the Cardinals. The Broncos game, they basically lost that one, but it was a leverage call that ultimately helped them win that one. The Raiders are atrocious. So I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender. But I do think it's a team that could end up being like the 2 or 3 seed in the AFC. And you mentioned that Chiefs game coming up here in a couple of weeks. That's obviously a big test. But I actually think this week against Pittsburgh is a really big one for the reason of, number one, you're going up against another AFC contender, even if Pittsburgh is struggling right now. The Steelers are coming off back-to-back losses. This is a kind of a must-win game for the Steelers. It's in Pittsburgh. How can the Colts, can they go on the road and play good football and continue to put up points? I know it's a defense that's been giving up a ton of points through the air, a ton of yards. If you can take care of business in this game and really start to separate yourself from the other non-Chiefs, Bills teams in the AFC, I think I will start believing in them. This is a big game for them.
Yeah, Marcus, to their credit, I think in a sense we're almost being harsh because here's what I would throw back at you. The Colts are 7-1. They've blown out the teams that they're supposed to blow out. Like, would the Eagles look any better in the same situation? I know they've not been battle tested yet, but in the same light, it's like, I don't know if it's necessarily fair to say definitively they're not Super Bowl contenders until proven otherwise, when you are, I mean, they're the best team in the league on paper by a mile right now in terms of DVOA, in terms of point differential, in terms of record. Like, they have all those things going for them, and they're doing exactly what you would expect a contending team to do given the schedule.
Right. So that's where we do need to give them credit. I just think the next couple of weeks that in Pittsburgh, in Kansas City, a home game against Houston, at Seattle, you go 2-2 in that stretch. I think that's when I'll buy into them a lot, because you're not going to win every tough game. You're not going to win every road game against a quality team. But if you can manage to, steady the ship against some of those other contenders, yeah, maybe this is a team that could be dangerous in the playoffs. If teams have to go to Indianapolis, play in that stadium against a team that can really run the ball, that's got weapons in the passing game, I want to see how they handle some of these road tests, because honestly, outside of a game against the Rams, and the Rams do not have a home field advantage at all to speak of, they really haven't had to play anybody challenging on the road yet. We'll see. I think we're going to get a good test this week.
It's true. And I've already got my eyes on that Kansas City Chiefs game on November 23rd. I think that's going to be a huge test. If they can pull out the win there, and I think for my money, the Chiefs might be the best team in the NFL right now, or at least the most threatening now that they got the receivers back. Patrick Mahomes looks like Patrick Mahomes. I think that could be a huge test for them right there. Marcus, let's talk about the NFC. And is it too early to say that we could already name the playoff teams in the NFC? Let's go through this. Let's do it. Never eat soggy waffles. Let's go right around the division here. Let's start with the NFC North. Obviously, you've got the Green Bay Packers, the Detroit Lions. One of those two teams is going to, it's a great division overall, by the way, but one of those two teams is going to win that division. Yeah, we can assume the other one's going to be a wild card team, right?
Right. So let's say the Packers win the division and the Lions end up being that fifth seed. So you're going to get two teams from the North. I think everybody would be in agreement for that. And honestly, the Packers and Lions, they might be two of the best four teams in the league. In the South, I think you're only going to get one team, and that would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, Carolina is 4-4. One of their losses came with Andy Dalton. I think we could talk about them in a little bit, but I don't think they're a playoff team. Then you go to the West, and this is where I think you get your other two wildcard teams. It's the Seahawks, the Rams, and the 49ers. One of those teams is going to win the division. The Rams are 5-2. The 49ers are 5-3. They're getting a little bit healthier. And then in the NFC East, it's the Eagles at 6-2. They've got a pretty big lead over the Cowboys, who are second in the division. I just have a hard time finding another team that I think is going to crack that top seven.
Let me play the advocate here, Marcus, though, on the opposite side. And I'm going to challenge you on the San Francisco 49ers, who, albeit have suffered a lot of injuries this season, they're not a very good team on paper. Their defense isn't a fraction of what it used to be. They have a negative point differential on the season, and there's not a lot of metrics to back up that they are a good football team right now. So even though that they're 5-3, we're still pretty early in the season. And dare I say, the Dallas Cowboys could. Yes, I could. No, the Cowboys could. Their offense is at least elite. The defense starts playing a little bit better. Maybe you have something there.
No, it's going to be the 49ers. And here's the reason why. The 49ers, a couple of their losses have come against some good teams on the road. Brock Purdy is expected to be back this week. They lost to Tampa Bay. They lost to Houston in Houston. They lost an early season game to Jacksonville in a game that Brock Purdy got hurt in. But, they beat the Rams in Los Angeles. They've got an easier schedule coming up. They've got the Giants here in a couple of weeks. They got Carolina, Cleveland, Tennessee, Chicago. I just think they're going to get to at least 9 wins. Like I just trust Kyle Shanahan blindly to at least get them to 9 wins. And I think they can win some of the divisional games against Arizona, the Rams, Seattle, the end of the year. They don't have to be great, but you go 5-3 over the next 8 games, you're looking at a 10-win team.
And for what it's worth, I do agree with you. I think that they are on track. They should grab one of those wild card spots, but before we move on, I want to see, is there any other team that you can think? I mean, the Chicago Bears are sitting on a winning record right now at 4-3 as well. Could they steal that away? I'm looking at the strength overall of the NFC West, and you talk about their schedule is manageable coming up, but the strength of that division, is that going to push them down a little bit? Just beating up against each other. Is there anybody else that you would consider putting in there? If not that,
the Bears are tough because I don't like a lot of their wins this year. They did not look good against Baltimore. And again, they play a lot, the Packers and Lions coming up multiple times. And that's just going to be a tough matchup. If I had to pick one team, we'll talk about this team in a second. It's probably Minnesota, just because I believe in this coaching staff. I believe in a lot of the talent. The quarterback issue has been a problem, but JJ McCarthy is expected to be back. I could see them, going on a 3 or 4 game winning streak because they have the talent. But would I predict that they're going to do it? No, I wouldn't. I just think the NFC is too strong for them to win, 6 of their next 10 games or so.
Yeah, Minnesota has fallen off so much since that 14-win season we saw last year with Sam Darnold at the helm. The other one is the Commanders. Like, it does not have the look of a contending team at all. Big drop off from the 2024 season. I don't see them fighting back into it either. All right.
I was to say the only thing with them is they're 3-4, and they're just -7 in the point differential. They've had so many injuries on the offensive line, and with Carson Wentz and with Aaron Jones, and Jordan Addison had a 3-game suspension to start the year. I wouldn't be surprised if they look significantly better in the second half of the year. But again, we just went through all the playoff teams. Like, it's really hard to knock one of those teams out because every other team has at least 5 wins right now that we're talking about. So they're going to really have to go on a run. And I just don't see them passing a team like the Rams or the Seahawks or the Lions or anything like that.
I mean, I think we can say confidently that you can predict 6 of the 7 teams, maybe all 7 of them, because I agree with you. I think that the 49ers are right there too. They should be able to lock up one of those spots considering the competition. You didn't like my Dallas Cowboys take. I was trying to be positive. Positive Cowboys take.
It's dumb.
All right, let's talk about, does the NFL have to ban the tush push? There's a tush push problem. I mean, I was a big advocate of leaving the play when they were voting on this, Marcus, because I'm like, all right, Nick Sirianni, the Eagles, they figured something out. They found something. You're just trying to take it away from them because you don't know how to stop them. Well, I've backtracked on that. And when I watched how the NFL is officiating this, that's the biggest factor to me. I mean, Kayvon Thibodeau took the ball away in what could have been a game-changing play for the Giants against the Eagles. Jalen Hurts' momentum was still going forward. I mean, that is a fumble 10 times out of 10 if you're talking about any other team. But it's not just that one play that's messed up. They're always getting the lunge forward. You're allowed to lean over top of the ball. They're getting an early jump on it. It's not being officiated well, Marcus. And my argument would be because it's not being officiated well, I would vote for banning it at this point.
I mean, I'm with you on every point. Like, how many times have we seen the guards just completely false start and they're not getting penalties called, or the centers lining over top of the ball to give you such a big advantage? It wasn't that long ago that pushing a runner in the back was a penalty. I don't know why the NFL stopped calling that penalty. They stopped for a while. They took it out of the rule books. It's also just a dead play in the NFL. Like, there's nothing exciting about watching. There was a game earlier this year, Tommy, where the Giants are playing the Eagles, and the Eagles ran the tush push on 4 consecutive plays from like the 4-yard line. And honestly, I think that sequence alone is what's going to get it banned because it's just not fun. It's not enjoyable. It's not exciting. And the NFL is going to want to take away some of these dead plays. I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know what language they're going to use or how they're going to ban this play. But at this point, I would be shocked if it returns in 2026.
Yeah, I do think it's taking away some of the excitement from it. It's gotten stale at this point. I think that most fans would be on board with that for the reasons we just outlined too. It's not being officiated well. But the question, Marcus, then becomes, all right, how do you go about doing this? Do you ban all blocking from pushing someone from behind? Like, are you not allowed to do that anymore? I think
that would be an easy way to do it, right? That's probably the easiest way to stop this. The problem with
though, like all the scrums, like anytime a running back gets stopped in the hole and you can't come up from behind anymore, like that would fall under the category of you can't come and push from behind. So all these scrums that we see, and it's like fighting for that extra yardage, it's not going to aid running backs. I can tell you that. Like they're going to be stopped in their tracks.
Yeah. That's one of the things the competition committee I think is going to struggle with is how do they take this play out of the game? Is it you can't have that many people lined up in the backfield? Is it you have to have so many people lined up this close to the sideline? I honestly I don't know, but I do know that nobody wants it outside of Philadelphia fans, and I even think some Philadelphia fans are getting tired of having to defend talking about this play. So I do think it's going to be a thing of the dodo bird here in a little bit.
And maybe Marcus, but before just banning it altogether, maybe this offseason would be a good time to say, all right, we are going to change. We're going to make sure that we hammer down some of these rules. You're not allowed to lean ahead of the ball. You can't, we're going to be eyeing that just like they do for other penalties. Like they call it closely. You're going to be eyeing that jump, the jump that you get on the ball. I don't know. I mean,
maybe they
I
could
hate
shoot
to
a
take it away.
laser right down the line of scrimmage. And hey, if anybody crosses this before the ball moves, it's a false start.
They got the laser technology now.
I know.
NFL's implemented it this year that tennis has had forever. So yeah, you got to be able to do something. But that's a conversation for a later date. We'll see where we are by the end of the season. If it's the Eagles are still cheating, which we can assume they probably will be.
Oh yeah,
by that point. All right, Marcus, let's talk about which team needs to how to start the deadline. We are a week away from the NFL trade deadline. We've seen some wild things happen at the deadline in recent years. Let's first of all, Marcus, talk about maybe who are some of like the biggest names on the market that you could possibly see being traded at the deadline. I know, was it Ari Mirov that put off Kayvon Thibodeau as a potential candidate out there? With the Giants want to trade him? I know that they're 3 deep with really good edge rushers. It's a money thing. That's one of the biggest names that I've heard so far, at least. Is there anybody else out there that could really kind of shake things up at the deadline?
Yeah, let's run through a couple of positions. Let's start at running back, because I actually think running back is one of the positions where a team could acquire a good player and have them instantly make an impact in their offense. I think the 49ers did this a couple years ago with Christian McCaffrey. They acquired him near the deadline, and they kind of rode him all the way to the NFC Championship game. So I think players like Breece Hall and Tony Pollard, I know they're not Christian McCaffrey, but I do think they could have some value on. Like I'm looking at Tony Pollard in like Kansas City. Kansas City just lost Isaiah Pacheco for a couple weeks because of an MCL injury. I think Tony Pollard could be available for like a late round pick swap. I think Breece Hall, if you want to put him in a better offense to try to, grit some more juice, I think that makes some sense as well. I think the one position, Tommy, that a lot of teams are looking at is wide receivers. There's just not enough wide receiver talent in the NFL. And a lot of these contending teams, whether it's Denver or Buffalo or some teams in the NFC, they could use some receiver help. And I think some of the names that have been mentioned, Jalen Waddle with the Dolphins, Rashid Shaheed with the Saints, maybe Chris Olave if a team wants to throw out a massive offer. I would expect us to see at least one wide receiver trade before next Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, that's a common one I feel like you see before the trade deadline is oftentimes wide receivers will get shipped. We look at some of the records, Marcus, at the bottom of the league. The Jets, Titans, Saints all sit on a 1-7 record. And these teams have all either have first-year head coaches, or in the Titans case, they've wiped out their coaching staff. They have no incentive not to trade. I mean, you need to build up these rosters at this point. I would suspect that all 3 of those teams would be open to it. The next in line, the Giants are at 2-6, the Dolphins at 2-6, and the Browns at 2-6. Of those teams, go ahead.
Real quick, I say that what's funny is I think the Titans and Giants, you're right. I think they should be sellers. But everything we've heard from both of these teams is they are interested in going out and getting playmakers to help their young quarterbacks. Cam Ward, obviously the number 1 pick in Tennessee, Jackson Dart, first-round quarterback with the Giants. It seems like they want to be buyers, and to a degree, I get it. Like the most important thing is developing these quarterbacks. So if you can go out and get a premier receiver to help that quarterback develop, I think they're going to be in the market for the Jalen Waddles, the Rashid Shaheed, all those type of guys over the next few days.
Yeah, and that's actually the point I was going to raise with the Giants and Jackson Dart specifically. Cam Skadaboo's gone, lost now for the season with the ankle injury. Jackson Dart looks solid. You don't want to do anything that's going to hurt his development. And so I understand from that standpoint, you've got those first-round quarterbacks. You're going to try to build around them. So don't take away anything that's going to make their lives harder. You want to continue that progress. The rest of the teams, however, though, I mean, you would suspect that they would be open and willing. And the Jets, I feel like, are a particularly interesting team because I understand that Aaron Glenn is right now in his first year. I don't know how much longer that experiment's going to last. We've talked about him on this show before, but they do have some really quality young assets on that team. Would they be willing to move a big name, a Quinnen Williams level player from that team?
I think it's possible. I don't think they're going to move on from like Garrett Wilson or Sauce Gardner because those are young building blocks, right? There's no incentive to do that. Quentin Williams is a little bit different just because he's been there for a while. He was in the 2019 draft. Not an old player by any means, but maybe that is a spot where you could trade him for a second round pick plus, and that gives you some picks to go up and get your next quarterback or to build the offense around him. I don't think the Jets are going to give him away, so they're going to be very careful about what they give him up for and which teams acquire him. But I do think him and Brees Hall are the two names that you should be targeting if you're looking at this Jets roster.
All right, Marcus. Other teams that I want to throw out here, and feel free to rebuttal, but you mentioned the Buffalo Bills. How about a team in the AFC East with them, the New England Patriots? Right now, you're a half a game up on the Bills. If the season ended today, they'd win that division. You're close to being a team that, who knows, at this rate, maybe you can contend for that top seed. I look at their roster and I think that they've done a solid job overall. You got maybe some holes on defense, wide receiver position. Stephon Diggs has been pretty good. Outside of that, Kayshon Boutte, Demario Douglas, Matt Collins doesn't really move the needle for me. They'd be a team that I'd be open to going out and getting a wide receiver as well. These guys have played efficient. It's just not necessarily that they are those X factors that you have to fear on that offense. So, and another team, Marcus, that I would throw out is the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they're going to comfortably win their division, the NFC East, but they're not a very good team on paper right now. They are a slightly above average team on paper. They do have some roster holes. I know that Nolan Smith has been injured. They've not been able to get good pass rush without him. He's going to be coming back here from IR, but that you only have two pass rushers, I think, with Smith and Josh Uche. That position's gone way downhill for them the last couple of years. I look at their cornerback position. Adoree Jackson had the concussion, but when he's on the field, he's a huge detriment. One of the worst corners graded out in the NFL this year. You can see he is a guy that they often target. Should they just go out and maybe patch a few of these holes? Because I think the rest of the roster is really good. Just a couple of those holes, maybe they can be legitimate Super Bowl contenders again. They probably already are, but you don't want any glaring weaknesses like we saw from them in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, Howie Roseman's always going to be aggressive. They're always going to try to make moves to get them over the top. I think this roster is still unbelievable. I think it's the best roster in the league. And this is kind of what happens with Philly is they kind of hang around the first 2 months of the season and then their depth starts to take over in the final 3 months. So I think they're going to be fine, but they're always big game hunting. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they're sending out offers for Max Crosby and for Trey Hendrickson and for Kayvon Thibodeau, some of these big name pass rushers just to add to their defensive line.
Yeah.
Real quick on the Patriots. I don't envision the Patriots making a big move at receiver because you mentioned Diggs. Boutte's caught 4 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. They drafted Kyle Williams in the 3rd round. They still really like Pop Douglas. So it's not the biggest name wide receiver group. But I think if they make a trade, I wouldn't be surprised if it's for a big time offensive lineman and, really try to upgrade that unit, because if there's one weakness with this Patriots team, it is the offensive line. Heck, they just gave up 5 sacks to Myles Garrett last week. And I think you can get a quality guard or a right tackle from a couple of these teams that are drafting a little bit, or, that are 1-6 or 2-5 right now. So look for the Patriots to maybe address that offensive line before the deadline.
All right, Marcus, let's move on and let's talk about who needs to win more in week 9, the Chiefs or the Bills. Now, you look at those divisions, they're both tightly contested at the top. The Bills, obviously, with the 6-2 Patriots right there, actually slightly above them. The Chiefs the same way because of their slow start to the season. They've been hot recently, winning 5 of their last 6, but they've got to turn it on as well because their division is tightly contested. Who does this mean more to?
Oh, the Bills by a lot. I mean, we've seen the Chiefs go on the road in the playoffs and make it to the Super Bowl. There was that one year where they were they played Miami, the Miami game at home. They played Baltimore on the road. They played Buffalo on the road, and they won it, right? Like they're okay doing that. And I just think they're going to find a way to grind out to 9 or 10 wins, maybe even a little bit more. But for Buffalo, this is hard because New England's schedule is so soft the rest of the year. Like they might not even be a good team and they're going to get to 12 wins. Like that's how easy it is. And they've already have a loss to the Bills they already have a loss to the Patriots in Buffalo this year. I think if Buffalo wants to make it to the Super Bowl, they need to have the conference go through Buffalo. And unfortunately, right now, because you dropped that game to New England, you dropped the game to Atlanta. Now Ed Oliver's out for the year. You kind of have to win this game to stay in contention in the AFC East. I think Buffalo really needs this one.
I agree with you. I do think that it's Buffalo. Interestingly, though, Marcus, the Chiefs are only third still in their division at 5-3. The Broncos are 6-2. The Chargers are 5-3, but hold the division record to have the second seed right now. And so there's still some work to be done. Obviously, the Chiefs don't have a cakewalk the rest of the way. They play in a hard division, and so theirs will largely be determined by how well they do against their own division, kind of like we talked about the NFC West. But I agree with you. I think overall it's Buffalo. I don't trust them as much. And like you said, it's not that we fear these teams aren't making the playoffs. It's I trust the Chiefs so much more if they have to play from a wild card spot because they've literally just done that. The Bills, I don't know if they're capable of that.
Yeah, and Buffalo has a great home field advantage, and that's the other part of this, right? A lot of the teams, maybe outside of Kansas City, having to go to Buffalo in late January, where it's freezing cold and it's snowy, or it might be rainy with the winds whipping around. That's just not an environment like. Let's talk about the Colts, right? We think this Colts team is going to be pretty good. They're going to be in the playoffs. Can you imagine them going up to Buffalo like in round 2 and winning that game, even with a great running game? I just don't see it. Same with Bo Nix and the Broncos. Buffalo, they've got to steal this one. The other part of this is, Tommy, that I think if Buffalo ever is going to get over the hump, they've got to feel like they can beat the Chiefs. And I know they've beaten them in the regular season, but the more that you can do that and just kind of exercise those demons a little bit, I think will give them confidence in the postseason that they're going to be okay.
Marcus, what's wild is there's a scenario in the AFC playoff race where we could be getting maybe the best game in the wild card round. Like there's a chance that the Bills and Chiefs could play each other. If neither of those teams end up getting that lone first round bye, I mean, that would be kind of depressing in a way to have one of those teams already knocked off out the bat.
Well, I think, Tommy, there's a chance that we get like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Justin Herbert. Those are your 3 AFC wildcard quarterbacks. And like, yeah, the Patriots, they work so hard to get the number 2 seed. They win the AFC East. And what's your prize in round 1? Oh, it's Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes coming to Foxborough. Like the AFC playoffs are going to be wild this year.
Since the change into that 17-game schedule, the 1 first round bye, like that bye is so critical. I feel like getting that week off, because like you said, we just outlined, you could be playing a really tough opponent in that first week, and then all your hard work is for naught. We kind of saw that last year in the NFC, and you feel for a team like the Vikings last year that they didn't end up winning that because of the season finale game, but you get to 14 wins and how quickly you exit the playoffs with that type of record. It's kind of depressing. Marcus, let's move on. Let's talk about the best 3-win teams in the NFL, or rather, which 3-win team has the best chance of making the postseason. There's quite a few here. Let's rattle these off, and then we'll kind of go down through them individually. The Houston Texans sit at 3-4 right now. Cincinnati Bengals are at 3-5. Washington Commanders at 3-5. Dallas Cowboys at 3-4-1. They had that tie to the Green Bay Packers. The Atlanta Falcons at 3-4, and the Minnesota Vikings at 3-4. We kind of brushed on a few of these teams so far. Which of them strikes you as maybe the most threatening if they get into the playoffs, and which one is most likely to get there?
I don't know if any of these teams are all that likely to get there, but if I had to pick one, I think I would pick the Texans, just because you might only need 9 wins to get that number 7 seed in the AFC. And they've got some easy games coming up, whether it's a game against the Titans. They finished the season, Cardinals, Raiders, Chargers, and Colts. And honestly, the Colts might not be playing for anything in week 18. So I could see them winning 3 of those last 4. This Houston defense is phenomenal. I mean, every one of these games, they've been awesome. 0 points allowed against the Titans, 10 points allowed against the Ravens, 15 points against the 49ers, 17 against Jacksonville, 20 against Tampa Bay. So their defense is going to keep them in every single game. If they can figure out the offense at all, if they can figure out the offensive line, if Nico Collins and Christian Kirk get healthy, and if they can score, 22, 23 points a game, I could see them going on a little bit of a run. But would I predict them to do it? Probably not.
Yeah, the Texans are, I think, the best of the group here. You have the franchise quarterback. When CJ Stroud has protection, he's been good. When he hasn't had protection, Texans can't score. And so that's the big factor for them right there. That division, the AFC South, it's already been decided, I think. I mean, even with the Colts having a lot harder schedule in the second half of the season, they're 7-1. I mean, they got such a comfortable lead right now that it's going to be really, really hard for a team like the Texans at 3-4 to overtake them for the season. So you're looking at a team that needs to get there through the wild card race. Can they be better than the teams in the wild card race?
We should mention they do have 2 games left against the Colts. So if you would happen to
those can swing things for sure.
They could swing things. Now, I still think the Colts have such a big lead that they're probably going to get to 10, 11 wins. And I just don't know if Houston can get there. But I do think this is probably the team that has the best overall unit, and that's Houston's defense. And they do have a quarterback that we've seen play really well. Would it shock me if they get to 8, 9 wins? No, it wouldn't.
I'm looking at the other teams right now. I mean, maybe I could have made a case for the Bengals had they not squandered an opportunity against the Jets. They would be sitting at 4-4, just a half a game behind the Steelers in the AFC North. Other than that, Marcus, it's really hard to come up with other teams on there that could potentially do that.
Can we talk about the Commanders really quickly? Because I think the Commanders are a good example of what you shouldn't do when you have a young franchise quarterback. Now, Jaden Daniels has been banged up, and you can't blame them for that. Like, it happens, right? But they've loaded this roster up with a bunch of older players. And now you're starting to see these guys break down, whether that's Laramie Tunsil, who they traded a second-round pick for and paid a bunch of money. Bobby Wagner looks like a shell of himself. Marshawn Lattimore had a nice interception last night against the Chiefs, but he's been a disaster this year. The defensive line is very old. When you have a young quarterback, you want to put together a squad that's young, energetic, fast, and the Commanders did the exact opposite. And now you're seeing that play out in these games. Like, they just look so slow compared to every other team they've played. And at 3-5 with their schedule coming up, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better.
That age is catching up with them for sure. I'm going to talk about them one more time, Marcus. The Dallas Cowboys, if they had the 22nd best defense in the NFL, that is enough for them to go on a serious run. Their offense is awesome. They can score at will. We saw what they can do against the Packers. I think that was a great example. You put up 40 and force that game to end in an overtime tie. Like, I think Dallas would be the most threatening team if, very contingent on if their defense can play at the 22nd to 25th best level. If they're a bottom 3 defense, completely unthreatening. They've got to play better on defense. I don't think they get there because we already outlined the teams in the playoff race in the NFC. But if they were to make it, all it would take is for Dallas to have a 3-game stretch where their offense is on fire, like it's pretty much been all season long, and their defense just isn't one of the 3 or 4 worst defenses in the league.
We need to have like a animation that's like a gaslighting animation here, because all of this is just all for naught. Like, you're right. If the Cowboys had the 24th ranked defense, they're probably 6-2 at this point after 8 games. Honestly, that's probably where they're at. But they're 3-4-1 because this defense is on pace to be one of the worst in NFL history. And I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. They're without 8 defensive backs right now. None of those guys are going to be back this week. The pass rush continues to be a major issue. They've got issues at linebacker. They've got injuries there as well to DeMarvion Overshown, who's not going to be back for a little bit. Jack Sanborn. It's a bad defense, and it's going to be a bad defense because you traded away your best defensive player 4 days before the season started. It's not magically going to get better, especially when you've got a stretch coming up against the Eagles, Chiefs, and Lions all in a row.
Yeah, that's a brutal stretch. And then you get the Chargers shortly thereafter. It's a very daunting task for them ahead. I don't know if they can get there this year. Why would they trade away a player like Micah Parsons? Yeah,
well, I mean, honestly, you're seeing part of it this year. Like, they they weren't one defensive player away, and they knew that. Like, so now they're
Yeah.
trying to reset their window a little bit. With Micah, they still would have been the 27th or 28th ranked defense. I
I
think
think
you're
that's the harsh reality of the situation for Dallas. Unfortunately, maybe they can open that window up starting next year. Marcus, let's talk about the MVP race right now. We're roughly the midway point of the NFL season. You and I have gone back and forth, kind of shared some of our opinions early on a few weeks back. I said Baker Mayfield. Like, I'm all on the Baker hype train. I think that's cooled off a little bit now. I wouldn't rule him out as a candidate. They're still sitting on a good record. He's still on pace for a good season, but who comes to mind for you now as maybe the overall best MVP candidate, and then maybe a long shot or two that you think is going to be in there in the race till the very end?
All right. So remember, when it comes to these awards, it's really more of a team award than it is an individual award. And that's why we generally get quarterbacks on teams that are the 1 or 2 seed. Buffalo was the number 2 seed last year. And that's why Josh Allen got it over Lamar Jackson, who had an unbelievable season, but not quite as good as the Bills. I think right now the best bet is probably Drake May. Drake May this year's got 15 touchdown passes, 3 interceptions. He's leading the NFL in passer rating. We mentioned the Patriots schedule and how soft it is over the next couple months. I see the Patriots getting to 12 wins. And even if Drake May doesn't have the best stats, if he leads his team from 3 wins last year to 12 wins this year, and he continues to put up the numbers that he is right now, he's completing over 75% of his passes. I think Drake May is an awesome bet to win this award.
Yeah, I mean, he's second in the running right now in terms of odds on DraftKings Sportsbook. I wouldn't have thought that this early on, and it's a great sign for the New England Patriots that their second-year quarterback is already firmly in the discussion of MVP. Actually, he's third in odds, right behind Mahomes and Josh Allen. Still a really good place to be in. We've talked about Stafford before, potentially late in his career, just because he's going to put up quite a bit of volume. Baker Mayfield. Marcus, I can't ignore what's right in front of us. Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's done it 3 times before. He's 3-time Super Bowl champion. He's the guy that's been there. He is first in odds right now. The Chiefs are getting hot at the right time. He leads the NFL with 17 touchdown passes right now. He's on pace to have a very good season. And so it's hard not to look at Mahomes and say, this could be a guy right there. Now, I think maybe what throws that off, maybe he doesn't get it this year if his team doesn't win the division. And the division is really tightly contested right now with the Broncos and the Chargers. But I think overall, if I just had to place a straight up like this guy or nothing, I think it's still maybe Mahomes.
The only hard part with Mahomes is he's going to be compared to his other seasons that were better statistically. In games like last night where Kansas City's defense was unbelievable. They gave up 7 points. Mahomes had 2 interceptions in the first half.
Now, one of those doinked right off of Kelsey's
100%.
hands and popped up in the air. But yes, I get what you're saying.
It's that people watch those games and be like, oh, Patrick Mahomes has this awesome defense that he can rely on, where I don't think maybe they think that about Drake May, even if it's the truth, not the truth. Like, I think narratives are a big reason why these awards shift from one player to another.
Absolutely. 4 interceptions on the season for Mahomes. I should mention as well, Marcus, the other pick, one of the other picks he has was a pick that also bounced off of Travis Kelce's hands, was taken back the other way on an interception return earlier in the season. Any other names you want to throw out there in the MVP race? Maybe a long shot name as we close today's show.
Jonathan Taylor's been awesome, but he's not winning it. A running back is just not winning that award anymore. It's going to be a quarterback. Unless the Colts go like 15-2, you're just blowing money if you decide to put it on a running back.
I agree. I think it's probably going to come down to those names we mentioned. We'll see. Daniel Jones, can he keep up with the momentum? I don't know if he can at this stage of his career. All right, we go live on the Stacking the Box No Huddle show every single Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. You can follow Marcus on X at Marcus_Mosher. You can follow me on X at Tommy Jaggi. You can download the Stacking the Box podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Also check us out on YouTube. You can follow my written work on stillcurtain.com, Marcus's written work on the FanSided NFL Network, and be sure to check out fansided.com for all your daily sports news and opinions. And thanks again for listening to Stacking the Box.